Thank you all for joining me today. So our second lecture, again, I'm going to try to keep this under 90 minutes, though I seem to have more slides than last time. So let's see what's going to happen. So now we are dealing with a period that's roughly starts with Justinian, and we're going to go all the way just dawn just before Constantinople was taken over, conquered by the Ottoman Turks in 1453. So we have about 1,000 years to cover right now. Let's try to do that. But I just wanted to show you guys this thing. Last time I didn't have a slide to show you what was on the shield of Constantine's army that was a Christogram, a kind of a symbol of Christ, that I said it wasn't the cross. There is two schools on that, but mostly people think that it wasn't the cross and it was the combination, the juxtaposition, the superimposition of two Greek letters, the letter chi and the letter rho. So X and P, this is how it looks like it. So that's basically stands for the first two letters of Christ, Christos.
Sorry, Sevan, I muted you by mistake. Sorry.
Yep. Okay. So anyway, so this is what was on the shield. I wanted to precise this because this sign is something that you can find in many churches. So pay attention to this. This is not something that I'm saying it's kind of random. It's unimportant. This is a very important symbol in Christianity, and it's found in many churches. Okay, so ooh la la. Yeah, so here we are. We kind of stopped around the fall of Rome, 476, completely overrun by barbarians, absolutely cannot keep it together, and so there is no Western Empire, Western Roman Empire. Basically, the only successors or the ones who are holding the flags, the identity, the culture, and everything of the Roman Empire is basically left to the east, basically Constantinople, and which we will start referring increasingly as the Byzantine Empire. Though you have to really remember that the Byzantines, they didn't call themselves Byzantines at all. They called themselves Romans. They really knew themselves as Romans, and this is the role. And they really felt like one day they were going to reconquer all that lost territory to the barbarians. It's really important that that's how they felt. Now, they are speaking a lot of Greek in there, but the liturgy is still being conducted in Latin. So there is a little bit of confusion, perhaps, in the culture there. So the two of them are going hand in hand until about Justinian. I believe at the end of Justinian, even the liturgy is going to switch to Greek after. So this Greek and Latin, there's going to be a lot of tension that's going to explode a little bit later that we'll see today. So at the time of the loss of the Western Roman Empire, basically the city of Rome and all the Italian peninsula, at that time, I mean okay, let's call it Byzantine, the Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire is doing pretty well. Actually, it's doing very well. A lot of the people living in all of these shores, parts of the Eastern Roman, they barely hear about what's happening in the Western Roman Empire. I mean, this is a cataclysmic event that happened in 476, of course, for that's the way we see it. But these people, they are conducting their lives, and the people who are leading, the emperors who are leading, they think that this is a temporary crisis that just happened. We're going to regain back all of this lost territory. So this is kind of their feeling because they are feeling themselves as Romans. This is really important. Okay, so uh, Justinian's arrived 527, so 476, so about 50 years later, Justinian arrives. So Justinian is somebody incredibly important in our history because he reigned quite a long time. You can see like almost 40 years, and also his impact is huge. In history, sometimes you notice that there are long, long periods of like really not much going on. And then you've got this brilliant period. It doesn't last sometimes that long, maybe 20, 30, 40 years. You notice that a lot. And then the implication, then the impact of those few years of either Renaissance or something of Golden Age, call it however you want, those are so long lasting. It happens a lot. So Justinian's impact is going to be huge, of course. Now he's busy, of course, on the east side here, trying to fend off the Persians, and then here in the Thrace and in this side on his western borders, he's dealing with Bulgarians, with trying to harass him and try to get entered. But he's keeping them at bay, at least in the beginning right now. So it hasn't really changed much since the fall of Rome. So, I mean, what we know, of course, of Justinian, his incredibly huge contribution to Western civilization, obviously, is the building of Hagia Sophia. This is such an important building in the whole history of architecture. And I'll get back to it a little bit later. So if there is one thing that you need to remember about Justinian is that he is the one who ordered the building of Hagia Sophia. So that's incredibly important. Okay, so who was Justinian? Well, this mosaic that you see, interestingly enough, it's not even in Hagia Sophia, or it's not even in Constantinople. It's in Ravenna. At some point, when Justinian was able to conquer, actually, I'm probably going ahead of myself, but when he gets back and conquer all of the Italian peninsula, he establishes Ravenna, which is just south of Venice, as the capital of that province. Basically, imagine that the Italian peninsula becomes the province of the Eastern Roman Empire. Can you see how things are shifting right now? Because Rome has fallen. So now truly Constantinople is almost the center of Europe. I mean, that's a big deal. So look at this incredible mosaic that Justinian order that happens to be in Ravenna. Well, this mosaic didn't get all the molestation that so many of the churches in Constantinople were affected of. So it survived beautifully and just happens to be in Ravenna and not in Constantinople. So Justinian, sorry, yeah, Ravenna, I'm showing you exactly where it is. So Justinian has an amazing commander of his army, a general Belisarius. So this general is such a genius that he's able to retake with the imperial army practically all of the lost territories to the barbarian. This is huge, and this happens during Justinian's time. It's huge. So basically, the Roman is restored, is brought back for a short period of time. Of course, you're going to see that Justinian's successors are not going to be able to hold on to all of this territory. But at least for a short period of time, the Byzantine, the Eastern Romans were able to reconquer all of the lost territory. It's a big deal. So a lot of this has to do with his wife, Theodora. So it's really interesting because both Justinian and Theodora are both coming from a very, very modest, lowly background. In fact, Justinian was a peasant. He grew up he was born in the countryside. His uncle happens to be the emperor, but he wasn't born. I'll have a call. Sheda, can you take down this number 718-781-1928? It's maybe somebody who's trying to connect. Okay, so Justinian is born really as a peasant. The Empress Theodora, she was an actress. She was an actress, and usually actresses were known of being prostitutes. And she even had a child at the time when Justinian attended one of the performances and then fell in love with her, and the two really, really fell in love with each other. This is a love story. We don't see this very often, but it's really what happened. So Justinian and Theodora, they are very controversial in the sense that after his uncle dies, Justin, and he didn't have other children to pass the throne to, so he named his successor. This happens a lot, just that sometimes, the emperor doesn't have a child, so they have different ways of passing on the throne. So you can name someone else. And if that person has the backing of the Senate or of the army, usually that person can get the throne. So this is how Justinian got the throne. And then on top of it, being a peasant, he goes and marries this actress. So of course the people are really not proud of it, not unhappy with it, but he's doing so well with the army. The other thing also that's problem is that all those fights, that all those wars that are going on to reconquer all the lost territories, I don't know how much the people of Constantinople care about that, but he had to raise the taxes in order to pay for all this army. So all these people, all they're seeing is the taxes going increasing, and again, that just adds to his unpopularity. Okay, so this situation comes to a boiling point where there is a number of races that happens regularly, as you know, at the Hippodrome, which we visited last time. And as I was mentioning last time, the Hippodrome is an opportunity to see or to be in the same place as the emperor. You and then you can start shouting your grievances and all that at that time. Well, it just also happened that during one of those races, 532, there are two teams that have emerged that are constantly in rivalry between each other. The teams are known by their colors, the blues and the greens, okay? And then it just happens that, and I can't remember exactly the reason why, but some of the members of both of those teams were arrested, and whatever crime they're committed, they were both sent to the gallows and were going to be executed. Well, the execution did not happen the right way. These people were going to be hung. The whole thing got botched, and the hanging did not happen. And those two guys were able to be taken and spirited away and be put and hidden in a monastery. Anyway, so now the people are saying that this was a miraculous occurrence that the members of those two teams. Now, these two teams actually really deadly against each other, but all of a sudden now they are allied because these are members of both teams, and they are saying this is a holy occurrence. This is a miraculous thing. Justinian has to free the members of those teams, and he doesn't, and he continues with the execution. And now the people are so upset, and this is brewing, and there is resentment. This is not so this is the tipping point. So that there is all of a sudden in 532, January 532, there is going to be the people. They're all gathered, the blues and the greens. That there's also the color red, but they were kind of a minor, and they're all yelling Nika, 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 which means, I guess, victory, victory, victory. So Nika, 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 and they want Justinian down, and they want another emperor to take his place. And this other emperor, he's not even interested in taking that post, but they named him, and despite his will, he's being pushed to being a rival to Justinian. And we're talking 10, 20, 30, 40,000 people, a lot of people. This is like practically a third of the population that's risen up and coming and asking for Justinian to come down. Justinian is about to do that. And while he's hesitating, he's taking his time. Oh la la. Whilst he's taking his time, there is a fire. There is a fire that's actually provoked by the rioters, and that fire starts to spread out so much that it even burns down not only Hagia Irene, which we will see in a minute, but also Hagia Sophia. The fire burns down Hagia Sophia. Hagia Sophia's roof was made out of timber, and it just is destroyed. Okay, so Justinian really is about to just abdicate and let go the throne. And that's when Theodora comes. This is incredibly important in the history of Constantinople. And then Theodora says, and I'm going to read this, I prefer to die as a ruler than to be removed from power. This is the words that have been passed on, that she says that, as a ruler, he should not abdicate and he should die as a ruler if he has to die. So at this point, Justinian organizes another game at the Hippodrome, and all of those rioters are brought back into the Hippodrome, and he orders his general to go with all of his army, whatever is still following him, because many of them had actually defected, to go and kill all those people inside the Hippodrome. And when everything is done, there are 30,000 dead. 30,000 people, inhabitants, residents, been killed by Belisarius because they were all trapped inside the Hippodrome and they couldn't walk away. It must have been a pandemonium. Must have been a disaster, terrible. Anyway, but that's how Justinian stays in power. So the first thing that he's going to do is, of course, order the building of Hagia Irene and Hagia Sophia. So these two churches, the Hagia Irene is a much smaller church. It's going to be built. It's actually located just behind Hagia Sophia. I'll show you guys in a minute. It's a smaller church. So that one acts as a basically is finished pretty quickly and act as a temporary cathedral. Was Hagia Sophia is built. Look at the years: 532, 537. You are not mistaken. It takes only 5 years to erect one of the most important architectural marvels of humanity. 5 years to build Hagia Sophia. Of course, when they built that, you didn't have the minaret. So thanks to Photoshop, I can erase that. So it must have looked something like that. And then on the very top here that you see, you didn't have the crescent, which is the symbol of Islam, but you had a gilded cross. And this whole dome must have been also gilded because all the people who were coming by sea, they could see this shining dome from a distance and they were just marveled. What a kind of incredible city, gilded city, golden city that's being seen from a distance. No, it must have been an amazing sight from a distance as well. And it's at the very top of the hill that I was mentioning, the hill number 1 out of the 7 hills. And the people who built this are, interestingly enough, they are not necessarily architect per se, but they are scientists. One is a mathematician. The other one is like a geometry professor, something like that. But they have such intelligence that they put those knowledges into the architectural design and construction, and they are able to build this dome, which is the largest dome that had been built since the Roman times, since the Pantheon. But I don't even know. I mean, I'm not an architect, so I don't know if it's kind of fair to compare Hagia Sophia's dome to Pantheon's dome. I don't know if it's apples and apples. It's still a dome. I think it's fine. But then it's going to take practically almost like 900 years to build another dome that's going to be larger than Hagia Sophia's, and that's the one in Florence by Brunelleschi in 1436. Okay, so this just gives you an idea about the architectural challenge that this implied. And the interior of the church, the interior was the vastest, the largest that any religious building ever constructed until then, and certainly beats the Pantheon, the inside of it, and the vastness of it, because it's absolutely unbroken. There are no columns coming, so it's a completely open space, which we will see in a minute. So the plan, the floor plan is your kind of usual Greek plan. It's more like a square design, and then you've got the nave with the central dome right here. This is called the bema or bema. So this is the sanctuary. This is where the altar is going to be, and is usually raised by a step or more. That's this area. The way the eastern churches, our design is different than what's happening really in the West, uh, especially in this beginning. So it's very square, and then you've got this bema, which we don't really have in Western or in Catholic churches. So, and then we all, of course, have an apse here. And then this is the east. It's turned toward east, but not necessarily rising sun east, but more like Jerusalem. It's directed toward Jerusalem. That's what it is. Okay, so that's, and then the other thing that's also interesting, you've got those narthexes. So you've got the inner narthex and the outer narthex. The outer one is generally used by the commoners, the regular folks, and then the inner narthex, highly decorated, much richly decorated, is for the emperor and his retinue and the dignitaries to come in from there, and then they will enter, of course, from the west. So this is, for example, the view of the outer narthex, which is kind of barren. I don't know if this was ever decorated during the time of Justinian. I don't think so. I think it was kind of like that, but perhaps it is. Um, but then you have a very different feel when you go to the inner narthex because all the walls are covered with these beautiful marble decorations, and they are kind of very interesting how the marble slab has been cut into two and then just split open like a book and then displayed like this, and you kind of find these beautiful designs. I don't know how they were able to cut this with such precision without kind of modern tools that we have today. It boggles my mind. Anyway, all of these what you see on the ceiling are golden mosaics. These are mosaics. It's really amazing, dating from the 6th century. So those have survived. They survive because mostly these mosaics don't represent any figure. So that was perhaps the luck of that. I don't know if they did this intentionally, why they didn't put any figures here, but then they weren't destroyed. So we're saying floral designs. The reason why I'm bringing this figurative images, the problem with them is that when we have a period of iconoclasm, in other words, the period when the rulers or the religious authorities, they forbid the use of the icons of images in churches, they also start to destroy what was done before. Well, here there is nothing to destroy that's offensive to those future generations to come. They are floral designs, so they certainly survive. But here is something else that, well, I wouldn't say it survived because it was designed or created in the 10th century, and by that time the iconoclastic movements had ended. But here is, for example, the first uh, mosaic that the emperor and the dignitaries will see as they enter inside the inner narthex is this mosaic in this section that's usually called the lunette. It's good because it's French and I can pronounce that no problem. So it's a lunette usually on top of a portal, a gate. You will have this semicircular area and lovely area for you to put a work of art, and very often it's decorated mm, with frescoes or statues, and in this case, of course, during Byzantine times, it's going to be uh, uh, um, mosaics. Now, the mosaics, as you know, this isn't something new. Mosaics were used by the Romans many, many centuries before, but they were always on the floor. It was a floral covering and decoration. It wasn't meant on walls. On walls, they use frescoes. All right. But the Byzantines, they managed to come up with a formula, with a way of doing this, so that those mosaics, those little tesserae, those little pieces that you see, all golden pieces, that basically two glass pieces that keeps in sandwich golden leaf, they were able to hold them vertically on walls. And so that technology really was developed by the Byzantine. That's why the Byzantine are so closely associated with this wall covering. the mosaics. So here we're going to see, for example, Virgin and Child, very typical motif, flanked by two emperors. We can see that they are wearing a crown. Who are they? Well, you can almost guess it. The one on the left is holding a little church, a model church. And the one on the right looks like he's holding a kind of a bunch of kind of a what is it, like a tower or a castle or something like that. Well, that's actually representative of a city protected by its protective walls, and then this one is a church. Well, this is the Justinian who's presenting to the Virgin the church that he helped build. He paid for, and then this is Constantine, whose name is associated with the city, who's built basically the beautiful Constantinople. So he's presenting his city to the Virgin. And all of these inscriptions are helping us identify all that. It's quite. You will always see these little. I always bring them up. This abbreviation MPs, mu and rho, Greek letters for mater. Rho. This time, it's the last letter. With the Kiro that we had seen earlier, it was the first and second letter. But this time, and from now on, whenever you see this kind of abbreviation, it's always first and last letter of the name. So mater, so mu and rho, and then theta and upsilon, teu of God. So mother of God. Okay, mother of God. So whenever you see MPOV, it's not military police. I can tell you that. It's not oi oi oi. It's basically mu and rho and theta and upsilon. Okay, so here is beautiful rendition of these figures of Constantine and Justinian. And then these again, like I told you, those mosaics covering the vaults of the inner narthex. And then as we progress and just about to enter the nave, the central part of the building under the central dome, just again another lunette appears that's been now decorated with Jesus, which is enthroned, very interesting throne. The back of it has this kind of a lyra shape, and then king or most likely an emperor is kneeling in humility in front of him. And we're not 100% sure who that is. We're thinking maybe it's Leo the Sixth, or maybe his son Constantine the Sixth, or Constantine the Seventh. So we're not 100% sure as to which one it is, but we know when this was constructed, built, created these mosaics. And so we are thinking that's probably one of those emperors. And you've got the Virgin Mary on one side and an angel. Doesn't look like Michael. It's probably Gabriel, who's associated with the Virgin because he was the one who was at the Annunciation. Okay, and then finally we can come in. And then this is something that no picture is absolutely going to give you the feeling, the impression, the awe-inspiring feelings that you're going to have when you enter this place. It still gives you that. I mean, in modern times, you have entered huge interiors, but this is something else. It feels really like having a man-made sky over your head. It's like you seeing the heavens above you. I don't know. It's just there's no word for this. So I'm just thrilled that our travelers are going to come and experience having a presence under this dome. I mean, the fact that they put all of these windows at the base of this cupola is such a brilliant idea because, of course, it's helped lighten the whole cupola as it's bearing its weight on all of these walls that are being pushed of course, to the sides, this is what that dome so heavy is doing on this building, is trying to just come down and push the walls. And how come those walls aren't just splitting open and then letting this cupola down? It's an incredible engineering feat. So of course, by adding all those windows, you're doing two things at the same time, and making the cupola lighter, but also bringing in light. And there is a magical effect that happens when you have these 40 or so windows that are just circling almost like jewels at the base of this dome. It feels like the dome is suspended because the light is giving you that effect. It feels like the dome is suspended. It's just miraculously stays floating up in the air. It's an incredible feeling. And they've got also so many other windows also that just makes actually this interior, as not as gloomy that it could have been. I mean, imagine Romanesque churches that are being built, I don't know, in two, 300, 400 years later. It's so dark and gloomy because they just don't know how to make, windows in them. But they did, and this is how it's created. This is how it looks now today. When you look up and you don't break your neck, this is how it looks. It's just amazing. Well, of course, the picture is taken in such a way that all of these windows are kind of how shall I say, the picture is such that they're not blinding us, but when we are under it, it does give us the feeling that the whole thing is floating miraculously. Now, of course, the medallion at the very center here has Arabic calligraphy. This isn't what you would have seen at the time of Justinian. This is what you would have had. That will be the picture of Christ, Pontocrator, the ruler of the world. So this is a very, very common way of adorning, decorating the center, the medallion of dome. And this is what we would have had, something like that, not necessarily this, but definitely the same subject. Well, of course, this wasn't acceptable. Makes no sense for Muslims who just takes this over. So they covered it or maybe destroyed it. I don't know what they did with it, but today this is how it looks, and that makes perfect sense. I mean, they're not going to leave Christ looking down on Muslim worshippers. That makes no sense. So the other incredible novelty, well, semi-novelty, that the Byzantines bring up in making this construction happen. Now, you have to understand that this is a little bit architectural things, but you have a square base, basically. You have a square base, and you're going to end up having a circular dome sitting on that square base. And on top of it, the arches are actually touching only these parts, trying to keep the weight of it. And what's happening with these? These are going to come down. They want to come down through the gravity. So you have to support this. So there are basically two techniques to do that. One is called the pendentive technique, and the other one is the squinches technique. This is a much rougher and not as elegant a technique, and doesn't even lend itself for putting artwork in those areas that's being covered. So the Byzantines have perfected this pendentive technique. So then you have these curved sides or corners that are also helping hold the weight of the cupola, and by the same token allows to create a field here for art to be displayed. So what is the art we're talking about here? Well, we're talking about some angels. Well, they are kind of higher up angels. The subject is good. I mean, we are looking up, we are looking into the heavens, and this cupola looks like heaven itself. So putting angels there, I think it was pretty clever, and that's where we are going toward the heavens. And the angels are kind of weird angels because they don't have just two little flapping wings, but they have multiple wings. Kind of hard to see how many. They tend to have 6 wings. They are the higher grade angels in the hierarchy. They are called seraphim. That's the plural of seraph. So this is what we have right now. Some of them, actually most of them, 3 out of the 4 seraphim are painted, and those paintings date from the 19th century when there was a restoration. They just painted this, and one of them is in mosaics, and those faces of the angels have been covered because, again, figurative is not acceptable, and they put some sort of a covering. It looks like, I don't know, a gilded cap of sorts with geometric designs. Geometry was a big deal in Islamic art, so they are very good at that. So this is what we see as covering the faces. However, there is one seraph that shows its face. I mean, his or her face. I'll not say that. They face, their face. So there you go. So this is made out of mosaic, and it actually wasn't uncovered until 2009. It was completely plastered over, and somehow it had escaped the attention of hundreds of years of onlookers. So 2009 it was uncovered, and it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful uh, picture of an angel. Look at that, and it's still uncovered, which kind of puzzles me because, as you all know, mm, Hagia Sophia is no longer a museum. Mm, After a decree in 2020 by the President Erdogan, it's no longer a museum. That's kind of a big deal. So if the worshippers are still there, they are being watched by a figure, a face here, which kind of surprises me that they haven't covered it. Perhaps they did. Perhaps during the worship times, perhaps they are covering it because some other parts of the former church is being covered. A lot of mosaics, actually, a drape just falls down and covers them during worship times. So here is this fellow who's basically showing very proudly, and I have a feeling that he's thinking, okay, how can we keep this face without being covered? So he's thinking, you know what? How about we put a little mustache on it and make him look like a real Turkish guy, and maybe the worshippers will go for it. So I decided to follow his suggestion, and I added a little mustache on this. And look, I mean, he looks perfectly Turkish at this point, and I hope they'll they'll keep his face uncovered. I think it's a brilliant idea. By the way, he looks like the guy. I don't know if you noticed, but his features are exactly like this man with his eyebrows risen like that. It's kind of funny. Um, Again, this was built in like 5 years, and in order for these people to do that, of course, they couldn't build every single element from scratch. So a lot of the materials were recycled, were brought from other places of the empire, from ancient buildings or ruins, Roman ruins, all over the empire, and they were brought. So there is over 100 columns that are being used to hold this structure, and there is also a second floor. Uh, Last I went there, the second floor was not open to the public. I don't know if it's open to the public, but that will be good to know. In fact, I know somebody in our audience who knows all these answers. Every time I said I don't know something, I think Carney, my friend who's in this audience, knows all this. So at the end of the lecture, perhaps he could enlighten us of the latest state of Hagia Sophia. So what you're looking at here is a column, a capital of the column, the top part of the column that's typical Byzantine style. And I'm just comparing it to the perhaps more familiar to you, the other classical styles that are Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian. But this is the Byzantine style. So it's really like a lot of deep carving, intricate foliage, kind of monograms, patterns. Yeah, it's a big departure from Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian. And sometimes they can be orthogonal or they can be circular, just like in this case. And here, the monogram that you see here are actually our Justinian and Theodora. These two were really in love. They just always were together. Unfortunately, Theodora will die 20 years practically before Justinian from cancer. And she will survive all of that. She will even survive, I think, she survives the plague, the famous plague of Justinian. Justinian himself will survive the plague, even though he will contract the plague, he will survive the plague. That plague was a disastrous period for Justinian's reign. It really weakened the empire. Anyway, I'm diverging. So here, some of those walls. Actually, Justinian's original idea was to actually cover all those walls with silver panels. They said, no, 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 don't do that. They're gonna be all stolen later, or they're gonna be taken and melted. Why don't we do this marble panels? So this is what they did. It's like book openings. And there is a very interesting decoration or part in this and on the flooring. As you can see, everything else is covered by a carpet, um, but this part has been left open. This is called the omphalos, omphalion. It goes back actually to the birth of Zeus. Jupiter, Zeus. It's the center of the earth, like the navel of the earth. This is what it means. It's supposed to be in Delphi. There's actually a particular stone there that's supposed to represent Zeus's birthplace. So anyway, so this design is there. There are a lot of interpretation as to what all of these circles represent. Do they have anything to do with planets? Maybe it's the heavens, and this very center is maybe the earth, that where we are. And a lot of the ceremonies when the emperors are crowned were happening right at this center, because the emperor was at the center of the earth. So it's very symbolic in that sense. So yeah, perhaps this is a representation of the universe. It's not really sure. So this is how it looks. One portion of the interior is dedicated to Muslim worshippers. So we basically watch them just, kneel and go up and down. My nanny used to pray like this at home, sometimes 5 times a day, and I was very familiar with that. Sometimes I will watch cowboy movies, and I will go right on back on her, and then she will be my little horse. I know this is ridiculous what I'm saying, but hey, when you're like 3, 4 years old, this is what you do. And then she didn't seem to mind. I loved my nanny very, very much. Whole family loved her. Anyway, so the mihrab is where the worshippers are directing their prayers to. Now it's slightly off the axle, because the axle of Hagia Sophia is directed toward Jerusalem, but the Mecca is slightly further south, so you've got this shift that's you can observe. So all the mihrabs, whenever a church has been converted, it's never smack at on the axis of the church, but slightly off. And then the minbar is what they use to climb halfway and then do their sermons. The priest will come there. So mihrab and then the minrab. It's like a pulpit. So I'm a little bit ahead of me, but since I am inside, let me tell you that all of these medallions are, of course, not Christian. After the conquest, this was immediately turned into a mosque, and then these decorations, I'm not sure when they came. It may have come as late as 18th century, 19th century, but they are huge, and they are, of course, Arabic calligraphy. So this says Muhammad, and this says Allah. So they are right next to the central apse here. So that makes sense. And then you can turn around, and then the other ones, there are 8 of them. So Allah and Muhammad are behind us, and you've got Abu Bakr, Osman, Hassan, Hussein, Ali, and Umayyad. So all of these guys are basically the successors to Muhammad. The whole dynasty will come out, the Rashidun dynasty. So these are the very first successors to Muhammad that are represented here in Arabic calligraphy. But we are back into the Christian church, and here is a beautiful mosaic that appears in the central apse, in the main apse of the nave. This is actually dates from the 9th century. 9th century, right after the second wave of iconoclastic period. There were two waves there, and at the end of the second one, the first thing that they did, I'm sure that this must have been lavishly decorated with mosaics, dating from centuries before, but then they took them down, they destroyed them, and then here we go. In the 9th century, they decide to put this up. So this is what we have. Quite beautiful, certainly. I love how they attempt to create a sense of three-dimensionality already. I mean, this is quite early. It's working pretty well. I've seen other attempts that are way more unrealistic and not very convincing. But this is pretty good. So they have a very good sense of observation and realism. So it looks pretty good. If I may say so. Who am I to say that? Okay, so look at that. This is all made out of mosaics, extremely fine work. And then the expression, of course, of the Virgin is often sad because she knows what's going to happen to her son. So that you will find that in the apse right here. So I don't know, on the day that we go there, is this going to be covered? Is it open? This is a question that perhaps Carney can answer a little bit later when we finish the lecture. On the first floor, there is a very, very famous mosaic. This is called the Deisis mosaic, extremely famous. I mean, this is represented in so many books that talk about art history. It's incredibly fine depiction of Christ, was flanked by the Virgin Mary and John the Baptist. It's called Deisis. This is, again, all of these things that we say, Virgin and Child, Deisis, Anastasis, and all this, these are subjects. So this subject, Deisis, what is it? Well, basically they are imploring, they are asking Jesus to be merciful on the day of the last judgment. This is so sometimes they even have their arms thrown at him, just imploring, begging him to be merciful on the day of the judgment. So they are basically acting on behalf of humanity. So this subject that is, found in many other churches, very common subject, the Deisis, this is perhaps the most beautiful of all, represented as I said in many books. What's also fascinating in the way they have laid those little mosaics, the tesserets. Look at that. It actually follows a certain pattern. Do you see these curves? It's this. You don't find this everywhere. The refinement of this one is absolutely particular. And then all of these little pieces are laid by giving a slight little angle. And so they are not flat, so that whenever the shimmering light of the candles hits them, they just bounce back, and it's just so magical. So that's the effect that it gives when you don't have all of these pieces just flat, but slightly up and down a little bit. So anyway, these people, they had really mastered the art of laying mosaics. But this is, dating from the 13th century. I mean, look at this date. This is an incredibly important day. I'm going to bring this up. 1261. All right, I won't say more. I'll talk to you guys about this a little bit later. Here is a little detail of the patterns of the pieces. Now, this mosaics was behind this wall. So when the Muslims took over, when the Ottomans took over, of course they they couldn't live with all this. They couldn't worship with all of these images around. But what's great about that is that instead of destroying them, maybe it was taking too much time to destroy, they decided to cover them in plaster, just plaster over. So that actually preserved them. So in the 1940s, 1930s, sorry, when Atatürk, which I will talk about in the fifth lecture, gave order to turn this building into a museum, then there was a lot of restoration work done, and then they discovered that behind this wall, this incredible mosaic was actually hiding and preserved. Yeah, so it's on the first floor, and I've never managed to go see it in memory. Maybe many years ago when I was there, it was open, but I don't really remember. So I hope we can see it maybe this year. We'll see. Okay, so that's basically Justinian. So when Justinian arrives, this is the shape of the empire, and when he dies in 565, this is how he leaves the empire really reconstructed, rebuilt practically from the ashes of the Roman Empire. But his son and his grandson and all of the descendants who are going to continue for a little while are not going to be able to hold on to this empire, and little by little they will lose it left and right from all parts. Yeah, I'm going to take you back to Arezzo. Arezzo in Italy, because there is one of my absolute favorite cycle of frescoes there, the Legend of the True Cross. And I talked to you guys about this place earlier in my first lecture, so I'm returning there. A little bit of background. In that cycle of frescoes, basically these are like cartoons, what tells the story. So you have the story of Helena, who's the mother of Constantine. Remember? And last time, I believe I said something wrong. I said that last time I said that Helena had been a Christian before Constantine. No. Now, Constantine became Christian upon winning that famous war in 312, the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. Okay, this is when the Kiro signs and all that I started with that happened. So then his mother become also Christian, so devout that she decides to go to Jerusalem and look for the true cross. What is the true cross? Is there a fake cross? Well, they call the cross on which Jesus was nailed the true cross, versus the two other crosses that were also on Golgotha, on which the two thieves had been nailed. So you don't want to mistake those two other crosses. You want to have the very cross that Jesus was nailed on. So she goes to Jerusalem, and through a bunch of machinations, it's complicated, she manages to unearth 3 crosses. Great. But which one is the true cross? Well, they do a test, and they hover the 3 crosses over a sick person or maybe a dead person, and that person is either healed instantly or resurrects, is risen instantly. Depends on what story you read, but it could be one or the other. But anyway, so here they are hovering, just hovering this cross over this person, and then person just rises up. Wow, that must be the true cross. The other one did not have this effect on this dead body or the sick person. So here we go. So she takes, I think, all 3 crosses, but they certainly put a little label on it. This is the true cross, and they just going to put the cross in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And actually, Helena is going to order the building of this church. Now, again, we are talking 4th century here. The church that you're seeing here definitely doesn't date from Helena's time, though the foundations do date from there. This is the same site. However, the church in question here dates, I think, from the 11th century. Anyway, so Helena orders the building of this extremely important church in Christianity, and then displays the true cross inside the church. Great. So now this is the background. Now we're gonna just go fast forward. So the cross is in Jerusalem, in that church of the Holy Sepulchre. Okay, and it's part of the Eastern Roman Empire. It's part of the Byzantine Empire, right? Well, you have an empire here. That's the Persian Empire, and they have been pushing and pushing and molesting and bothering and raiding and all of that the Byzantine fortifications all around the border here. And then finally, they're going to manage to pierce through. So, okay, I don't want the sound. I don't know why there's a sound here. Okay, so it starts with a fellow named Maurice. Maurice is the emperor at that time. This is now 606, all right? So 606 now, this is where we fast forwarded. And then some fellow named Phocas is going to mount a coup, and through violence and all that is going to take the throne. Okay, he's going to take the throne, and he's terrible. He's really a bad commander, and all he wants just have power and does nothing else. So it's during his time. Oh, and then Maurice, who was the emperor before him, was friendly with the king or the emperor of the Persian, Khosrow. That's the name of this guy, Khosrow II. So he was friendly. So when he sees, when the emperor of the Persians sees that this guy usurped and took over the throne and killed Maurice, he is mad, and he decides to attack what used to be his ally, his friend, and he enters Anatolia. And there is so much confusion anyway happening in Constantinople because this guy is maneuvering to stay in power, that there is some sort of a vacuum going on, and they're able to pierce through. So now the Persians are in Anatolia, and this is what's happening. Look what's going on. This is okay. So I'm going to stop this here. Okay, so then the people in Constantinople, they understand that this fellow has to go. So there is another coup and another riot and whatnot. So they put Heraclius to the power. Heraclius is a general, and he's a good guy. And the other good guy about him is that turns out that he might be Armenian. That's pretty cool. And I liked him even before I learned about that. So it's not 100% true though. His father was, established in Armenia, which was a province of the empire. So he's from there. So I like to think that Heraclius was Armenian, though his name doesn't end with IAN, which is the usual name. Okay, guys, I'm just kidding you. Okay, so Heraclius, no, it's true that he might be Armenian. Heraclius is a good guy. He's trying to seize to organize the army because the Persians are all over now. Look what's going on. And on the other side, you've got the Bulgarian also that just bothering them. And then the Persians now have taken the Holy Land. Look at that. Jerusalem is gone. It's no longer in the hands of the empire. This is terrible. 615. Okay, so now look at that. They come they pierce through Anatolia. They are almost in front of Constantinople. Okay, well, this isn't going to last. They're going to be repulsed and taken back to a certain point. Not soon enough, though. But anyway, it's going to happen. Okay, so I'm wait. Okay, look, they came all the way there up. They go back. So 624, 624. So Heraclius is doing a good job at this point. But there was one moment. Did you see that? Did you see that there was one moment where they come all the way to Constantinople and they lay siege there, but they're not going to be able to last. And on the other side, you see the other foes of the empire are the Bulgarians. Anyway, But they lose a very important battle in 626, and Heraclius takes back all of the lost territory from the empire, and he kills Khosrow in the battle, or maybe after the battle. It's not really sure. There are various stories about that. Anyway, so let me see if I'm missing anything here. Okay. So I'm just going to leave it here. Maybe I will come back. Okay. So Heraclius did a great job. Thank you very much. And he gets back the Jerusalem, right? So I'm back to Piero della Francesca because he did paint this as well. So this is this famous battle between Heraclius and Khosrow. Oh no, Khosrow. And then this is an amazing painting because it's really. I keep showing you as Piero della Francesca because I don't know if you realize that this is early Renaissance and it's an incredibly important artist in the history of art. And one of his most famous paintings, our cycle of frescoes, is the one I'm showing you. So this is not. I'm not showing you something really minor here. So and he has dedicated all of these frescoes for this episode in history. So here is perhaps Heraclius, and then he's just piercing the neck of Khosrow, and then he kills him. Well, it didn't happen that way. It doesn't matter. The story, the way Piero tells us, is much more interesting. The other thing that's so fascinating, look what's behind. That's the true cross. Because guess what? When the Persians took over Constantinople, took over Jerusalem, they also took the true cross with them. So now, of course, Heraclius wants the cross back, and he takes it, and it's very interesting that actually the cross is also piercing almost the body of Khosrow. So it's very good, very interesting composition. Anyway, so according to legend, and I like to think that it's true, but I know it's not true, but I want to convince myself that it's true. Heraclius brings the true cross to Hagia Sophia. I mean, isn't that a wonderful thought? Isn't that a great thought that he brings the cross to Hagia Sophia and he displays it in Hagia Sophia? There is a few minor people would think that, and I'm one of them because it suits me to think that, he brought the true cross to Hagia Sophia and hung it there. Whatever cross it was, everybody believes that's a true cross, so it is the true cross. So anyway, so I did in Photoshop a little play here. So I put some cross. It's actually a medieval cross. So I hung it in Hagia Sophia, and I love the thought that maybe the true cross was hanging once there. Well, it didn't keep it there. Heraclius decides to bring the true cross back to Jerusalem. So here he is. This is another very famous fresco. This one is found in Florence, and then he decides to bring the true cross to Jerusalem, and he tries to enter the doors of Jerusalem, but then the doors are locked. They don't open no matter what he does. He says, I've got the cross. Come on, guys, open the door. It doesn't open miraculously. They stay closed because Heraclius was wearing his emperor's clothes, and he was supposed to enter with greater humility. So he has to take his shoes off, and he has to wear basically his tunic, his undergarments, and this is how he's getting. What I don't like about this painting, it actually refutes my little theory that the true cross was entirely captured by Heraclius, because guess what? Here, do you see that the true cross is actually half of the cross? Well, there is a whole school of thought that the Persians had actually cut or mutilated the true cross in half or something like that. I don't know what they did. It was probably into a shrine, and then they took the shrine and then they melted whatnot. Anyway, in this painting, is I think probably true to reality. He's entering Jerusalem with half of the true cross. Oh my God, it's 306. I'm not doing well at all, guys. I think this is gonna go way beyond. Anyway, so Heraclius won over the Persians. Oh yeah, I'm showing you this because I'm gonna skip this. And then yeah, so this is another picture showing Piero della Francesca with Heraclius with bare feet coming and entering Jerusalem, at least in according to Piero, the true cross is whole here, is not half. What's happening while the Persians and the Byzantines are busy fighting each other? What's happening elsewhere in the Arabian Peninsula? What's happening? Well, there is something called Islam that's starting to be born. And Muhammad in 610 is going to get the visit of the angel Gabriel. You know, Christians are not the only ones getting visits like this, you know, so please. So he gets the visit, and then Gabriel talks to him for I don't know hours and days. He goes back to this cave and he gets more visits. Anyway, he keeps going to some secret spot, Muhammad, and he gets all of these words that Gabriel says is the words of God, Allah, and then but Muhammad is illiterate. He doesn't write. Well, during those times when people didn't use any writing, they commit a lot of things to memory. Their memory is like muscles. So they really can really remember things much better. So everything that Gabriel is saying, he's not writing it down. He's just recording it. He's remembering it so much that when he goes back to wherever he came from and he finds a scribe, he tells him, okay, now take note. This is what Gabriel told me. This is what Allah told me. So that's why Muhammad is basically passing the word. He's a prophet. He is not a Messiah. He's not God. He's a prophet. He's basically bringing the word of God. He's the messenger of God. So he passes all of these words that Gabriel told him to the scribe, and somehow they come out in verses, perfect. And then that's how you're going to end up having the Quran. That's the Quran. And Quran means recitation. He recited all the stuff that he heard from Gabriel, and then a book was created as a result of that, and that book is the Quran. This is how the Quran, the holy book, the equivalent, let's say, of the Bible for Muslim. All right. Well, this new religion is going to just be so popular in the whole Arabian Peninsula that an army is going to be raised. And this army is going to be so motivated that they're going to win every single battle and conquer everything, including the Persians. These Persians, who were mortal enemies of the Byzantines, all of a sudden, actually, they ally with the Byzantine to face these armies of Islam. It's just quite a reversal of events. Well, both armies are so exhausted for having fought each other for decades that they cannot resist the arrival of this incredibly fresh army. So this is a new caliphate. The Rashidun Caliphate is called, and they are taking this true cross that had made it to Jerusalem is now in the hands of Muslims, of the Islamic State, basically just barely 10 years, 7 years after being brought back by Heraclius. So all of this effort that Heraclius, I'm telling you, should have stayed, should have left it in Constantinople. Oh well. Okay, so the the Muslims are doing so well. They have conquered so much in such a short period of time that all of a sudden the Byzantines like, hold on a second, are we doing something wrong that God has taken their side? Could this be that maybe we love icons? Could this be like the icons have something to do with that? Because the Muslims, they don't have icons. They don't represent any kind of figures or holy figures on their walls. It's only like flowers and geometric shapes and calligraphy. So maybe we should remove all our icons from our churches. That must be the reason why. So this is when the iconoclastic movement is going to just start and sweep through the empire. It's a disaster. It's a disaster for art lovers like me because so much has been destroyed. I am so mad at this iconoclast all they did this destroy. It didn't really help anything, obviously. But anyway, we lost so much. So what I'm showing here is actually inside Hagia Irene. This is the first church that Justinian built before Hagia Sophia, which is right behind here. So as he was building the other one. So this is 532. You see, Hagia Sophia was built in 537. So anyway, so this is a church that Justinian built, but then a lot of the part of the church came down through earthquakes and whatnot. But anyway, the apse also must have come down. Anyway, they must have removed all of those beautiful decorations that were here during the iconoclastic period. And then when they rebuilt this church, this apse, what you're seeing here is a very well preserved iconoclastic art. This is this very subdued, very austere art that's going to just replace, let's say, the Virgin and Child that we had in Hagia Sophia. Okay, so I hope you understand what's going on here. This is, by the way, Hagia Irene, this amazing church. We don't have it in our official tour times. It's very likely that we try to go there during our optional times. I mean, I would love to go there. This is where I used to listen to classical music when I will visit from France. The annual Istanbul Music Festival will use this as a venue, and I heard several classical concerts. The acoustics are amazing in here. The other thing that's also in this church that's very intriguing to me is that there are a couple of porphyry tombs in one of the gardens of this church, and there is word out there, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I like this one. There is word out there that it could be Constantine the Great's tomb, because we lost his tomb and nobody knows really where it is. But some people think it could be right there in Hagia Irene. It has to be an emperor's tomb. Nobody knows really whose tomb it is. What if it was Constantine the Great's tomb? That will be awesome. So anyway, when we go to Hagia Irene, I'm looking forward to just looking at this tomb and say, you know what? You could be Constantine's tomb. Well, all right. So we have to fast forward, and then we are now a very interesting period that also concerns Hagia Sophia and Constantinople. As you know, the church is now divided in many parts. The first big split that happens was between the Catholic and Orthodox. This is before the arrival of the Reformation. So Catholic and Orthodox, how did this happen? When did this happen? So the Eastern Orthodox Church is all of these parts. So that's about what today's 250 millions, and then the Catholics, spread all over here perhaps, and that's like over a billion, sorry, people. So much more Catholic today than. But how did that happen? So it has to do with us. So it was in 1054. You've got a representative of the Pope, actually a cardinal, who shows up in Hagia Sophia, and in his hand there is a scroll or maybe a parchment that's been rolled, and it holds the seal of the Pope. And then he comes in Hagia Sophia, and he takes this piece of paper and slams it on the altar of Hagia Sophia, just like that. And he does it in such a way that after he leaves it there, the roll just rolls down and then falls on the ground, and then the people are just picking it up and putting it back on the altar. What's that? So and in front of this cardinal there is the patriarch, the head of the Constantinople, the bishop of the Constantinople. You wouldn't call him bishop, but the patriarch of Constantinople is there. So here you've got this cardinal and the patriarch in front of each other, and then the cardinal has come and then slammed this piece of paper rolled on the altar. What's up the deal? Well, these two people actually had been bickering and disagreeing on some religious matters that are like super complicated, and if I tell you what they are, you will think it's absolutely ridiculous. But it had come to such a boiling point that when they unrolled the piece of paper, they read that this was an order, a decree of excommunication to the Patriarchate and also all of his clergy. Do you know what that means? It's basically removing them from being Christians, that they cannot take communion. I mean, who the hell are you to just do that to the patriarchate, to the patriarch of Constantinople? I mean, it's like trying to do that to the Pope. Well, guess what? Days later, the patriarch is going to send a decree, his own decree, excommunicating the Pope. So now all of a sudden, you've got this rift that's really clear and open. Everybody's just horrified by what's going on. And this is basically the root of the split, the Great Schism, as it is known. 1054, it happened in Constantinople, in Hagia Sophia. One of the points, I mean, I'm not joking, okay? This is one of the reasons why these two split, is that one wanted to have the Eucharist performed with unleavened bread. The other ones wanted leavened bread. So I don't understand any of this leaven and leaven. Well, leaven, I think if you have leavened bread, it rises, and that's kind of symbolizes the rising of Christ. So this is the Eastern church that's on this side. Unleavened bread, because they are saying during the Passover when Christ came, the Jews didn't use leavened bread, so let's be true to what Jesus did. So it has to be unleavened. Leaven, unleavened, leaven, unleavened. Boom, you've got the schism. All right then, what's the sticky point? So this is the Patriarchate still in Constantinople. This is the Orthodox Patriarchate in Constantinople, which I'm hoping to visit with our group on our tour. Okay, so that was 1054, and now we've got the split, and then there is something even bigger, more dangerous, more long-lasting that's going to come over the Byzantines, and those are the Turks, the Seljuk Turks. They are brewing and coming together in the Central Asian region. Today's Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, etc. So they're all there. So they are deciding to just move west, and they come and conquer Iran, they conquer Mesopotamia, the Syria, and all of these things. And then they are at the doors of the Byzantine Empire in this city called Manzikert or Malazgirt today. Manzikert is the ancient name. And the emperor at that time, his name is Romanos IV. He belongs to the Diogenes family, and he's not very good. And he basically loses a very important battle there, the Battle of Manzikert, extremely consequential battle, because and then the leader of the Seljuk Turks is Alparslan. When I grew up in Turkey, that name will come very often, Alparslan, well, because it opens basically the gates of Anatolia to Turks. This is when Turks, quote unquote, invade or settle in Anatolia. So today we have Turkic people in Anatolia, in Turkey, as a result of the loss of this battle in Manzikert in 1071. Incredibly consequential battle. Boom. So here we go. They start to enter. So just this is the breach that they managed to make, and then very soon after, this is how it's turning, and all of these people, the Turkic people, are going to start and settle all over the place here. So as you can see, the empire is shrinking. But they also conquered Jerusalem. They also conquered Jerusalem. This is a big deal. This is the Holy Land. Again, it fell in the hands of some, Islamic army or Muslims. And these ones are even more ruthless, and they actually converted too recently. They don't even understand what Christians are doing there, why they have to come all the way here for, for relics and for pilgrimage, and they are desecrating things. And the news are terrible coming to Constantinople. So this is when Alexios Komnenos is going to make a call. I almost said a phone call. Of course, he couldn't make a phone call, but he makes a call to the Pope and saying, guys, do you know what's happening in Jerusalem? Do you know what they're doing to the Holy Sepulchre and our little true cross and all of these things? Do you know what's going on there? You guys cannot go there anymore. You cannot do any pilgrimage. It's over. So why don't you help me reconquer all this land? Because I don't have the strength to do it. But if you help me, this is a common enemy. And this is 1096. This is past 1054. This is past the Great Schism. He's even suggesting that perhaps he will unify the church, that perhaps the two churches are going to get back to normal. So he's saying, send me an army. I'll add mine to it, and then we will reconquer all of this land and we'll get the Holy Land back. Well, that Pope, Urban II, is going to make such a call from somewhere in France that it's gonna provoke not just the little army, but the first crusade. I mean, you all heard of the Crusades. Where did it start? Where was it initiated? In Constantinople. If Alexios had not made that call, we wouldn't have crusades. I mean, this is a big deal, right? Everybody knows about crusade. It started in the whole concept started. Well, no, let's be honest. Alexios was not expecting a whole crusade. He only wanted a few warriors, a little army. Well, he ended up having tens of thousands of people coming, and he wasn't really happy. He wasn't happy. All these people have to go through here to go there, and he doesn't know all these people. Who are they? They are kind of ruffians, many of them. In fact, the first group that comes, they are so rough that he lets them pass, and they're all being massacred by the Seljuks because they are absolute like peasants, completely clueless about what they're getting. This is all lands held by the Seljuks. Well, then you're going to have some prince here and the brother of another king there, and here they're coming with their army, and then Alexios says, okay, I will let you pass, but you have to promise me one thing. All the lands that you're going to get in Anatolia, you have to make sure that you return them to me. And then he asked them to give a vow. And they all obligedly they do vow, because guess what? If he doesn't let them go, they're not going to be able to pass through. So they're all like waiting here. Come on, guys, can we open the door so that we can go through? Anyway, so that's how Jerusalem is actually conquered back, taken back by the first crusaders. This is how it happens. And then all of this Anatolia is somewhat returned back to Constantinople. And then there's going to be second, third, and then the fourth crusade. Alors ça, I'm going to speak French now. This is the parts that I'm really mad about. This is the part that is absolutely unacceptable. This is the part that should have never happened. Okay, I don't want to see this. I am in the Doge's Palace in Venice. I took you down there. After Arezzo, here I'm in Venice. And here there is a painting right in the hall of the Grand Council, the most prestigious hall in perhaps Hall of Venice. And it shows this painting. What is this painting among many other paintings that shows a bunch of battles that the Venetians have won? It shows the sack of Constantinople. They show this as something to be glorified about, as if something to be proud about. Yes, you heard me right. The fourth Crusaders, their initial plan was to go to the Holy Land to take it back. Well, guess what? Because the Venetian didn't get enough money for all the money that they spent in building an armada and all this fleet, that they decided, you know what, where can we go where we can rampage and we can just loot and we can take all the monies so that we can get paid back. So they decided, you know what, Constantinople is the richest city on earth practically. Let's go and sack it and then get all the money that we need from there. And that's how it happened that the Venetian led actually this army to come and conquer, invade Constantinople. I love all the stories behind this. I have no time. It's really, really fascinating. But it's an incredibly upsetting thing to me because these people, these fourth crusaders, so-called Christians that are attacking another Christian city, it's absolutely unacceptable. In fact, the Pope, when he heard that this had happened, he excommunicated all these people, instead of having their sins atoned for going to do a crusade and kill Muslims. Now they're all killing and taking over a Christian city. Well, the emperor has to go into exile, and now you're gonna have, believe it or not, the remnants of the Byzantine Empire that's outside of Constantinople. This is what they are left with, they are holding on to. This is where they went into exile, while the Crusaders have turned the rest of the lands with Constantinople at the heart into another empire, and that empire is called the Latin Empire. This is going to last about 60 years. 60 years, the Byzantines are going to be in exile elsewhere instead of being at home in Constantinople because the Crusaders have taken over that land and completely looted every single thing they can, including the relics. Now, the fellow who was behind all this, I'm so mad at him, is this guy named Enricus Dandolo, who was the Doge of the Venetian at that time. He led the armies of the Fourth Crusaders because he wanted the money back. So he takes all of these amazing things from Constantinople and ships it back to Venice, including probably the most precious item that's left from Roman time and Greek times, perhaps. It's actually right here. I'm going to try to play this. Okay, so do you see this? That decorates the main gate, main entrance of the hippodrome, the quadriga, perhaps with a chariot in the back. Well, they stole that. They stole that. It used to be right here in the hippodrome, and guess where it is? Right on the facade of the St. Mark's Basilica, right there. They bring them, they ship them there, and they put it right there. I mean, so much has been stolen out of Constantinople during those 60 or so years that this Latin Empire, that were the terrible managers of an empire, they were constantly cash strapped and constantly in need of money. They couldn't defend themselves. And then they sold every single thing they could, every single scrap they could find in Constantinople, they sold it to raise money. So here they are in Constantinople, and I really apologize. I'm way going beyond my 90 minutes. I hope you will forgive me, but this is really very dear to me and very interesting to me. I hope it is to you too. So anyway, if you go to Venice, this is where you will find. And another incredible important relic, it's the crown of thorns of Jesus. It was in Constantinople. So what they do, they know it's incredibly precious for Christendom. So they actually pawn it. They pawn this against so much money, and the Venetians are actually the ones going for it. So actually the crown goes to Venice, and all that money goes to Constantinople, and they have a deadline so that if they pay it back, they can get the crown. Of course, they're not going to be able. I mean, the Latin Empire is always bankrupt, so actually they won't be. So the last day when the Venetians are going to hold possession of this crown of thorns because the people in Constantinople aren't able to pay for it, a French guy comes, a French king, Louis IX, also known as Saint Louis, is going to be the one paying 130,000 gold livres, which is about maybe a year's income of the French monarchy. A whole year's money that they will get from taxes and feudal dues and royal estates. All that money just for these objects. And then not only that, he brings it to Paris and he will build La Sainte-Chapelle, which is one of the jewels of Gothic architecture, Saint Louis. But all of this again, so connected so tightly to Constantinople. Okay, so 1261, the Byzantine take back their capital, completely chase and kick out those Latin whatever, and they're back in business, but quite weakened and totally impoverished. All of those riches have been looted, have been sold off, and there's very, very, very little left. And all of these buildings are in ruins, and they need to be so this is actually called the Palaiologan Renaissance because the Palaiologos was the name of the family that basically are the last ones before uh, the eventual conquest by the Ottomans. So the last dynasty is Palaiologos, and then we remember this final period from 1261 to 1453 as the Palaiologan Renaissance. Renaissance, well, they're all excited to come back, to take back their churches and whatnot. And one of the first things that they're going to build and create is this famous Deicist mosaic that I just showed you. And I'm about to finish with the Chora Church. Oh my God. This is an incredible, incredible church. Last time we were there, we couldn't get in because it was still being converted to a to Jami, to mosque. And so we weren't able to get in. But about a year ago, last May 2024, it finally opened its doors. And then people like us who are dying to see what's inside can see and visit that because some of the most beautiful mosaics ever created by the Byzantines. And on top of it, some of the most beautiful frescoes. Now, frescoes are not something you associate often with Byzantines, are also housed in this amazing place. So here it is seen from exterior. This is kind of the entrance. I don't know how old these pictures are. Like I said, I didn't go there last time, so none of these pictures are mine. This is how it looks from the 1900s. The minaret is missing its top. It's actually quite simple, the interior, in other words, to kind of wrap your mind around. This is the original church. The church was actually definitely there from the 4th century on, but nothing remains from that time. Then it had been rebuilt in the 11th century. So this is how it looks actually, 11th century. This is all this dark part dates from this period, 1077, 1081, 11th century. And then all of these parts date from the 14th century. So now we kind of late at this point. As you can see, we're coming very close to the end of poor Constantinople. And the floor plan is basically the apse, the nave, right, the central part, the inner narthex, which we saw also with Hagia Sophia, the outer narthex, and then you've got something else here. You've got a side chapel, Pereklation. Pereklation. So I don't know if I'm saying this right. I don't speak Greek. So this section here is basically a side chapel, a mortuary chapel that happens there. It has amazing frescoes there. Anyway, I was working like a maniac these past 2 days trying to map this. This is crazy. Trying to map all of these mosaics that are there so that, when I go there, I can just point it out. Okay, this is the mosaic of the conception, and this is the mosaic of this, and this is Anna praying there, and then this is heading. So hopefully I'll be able to do that, and I'll be also helped by a guide, so I won't be alone. But definitely, this is gonna be such an exciting place. Our necks are gonna hurt, like you have no idea, because everything is kind of up, and but that's okay. It's worth it. So we'll have an amazing time. So we owe all of these mosaics and all of this decoration to this guy, Theodore Metohites. Okay, Theodore Metohites. He was a diplomat. He was a prime minister. He was a treasury officer during the Byzantine times. So Emperor Andronicus was his ruler at that time. Anyway, he became so wealthy that actually Andronicus asked him, "Hey, would you like to renovate this church? And then you can also put your tomb in there." He said, "Oh yeah, sure." He was just flattered by being asked by the emperor to restore a church that was totally falling apart after years of neglect in the hands of the Latin Empire. So he's going to just fix this church and decorate and put all of his money to make it so beautiful. So this is what we have there. We've got just the most beautiful mosaics that Byzantines ever created right there. It's about time because I'm not going to show you Ravenna's pictures, Ravenna's mosaics. That's just not right. Or mosaics found in Sicily, which are also incredibly beautiful, from the 11th, 12th centuries. So here we have, okay, so this is one of my favorite subjects. It's actually called the Conception of Virgin Mary, but it's kind of weird that they title it that way. But these are actually the parents of Virgin Mary, Anna and Joachim. So Joachim, they couldn't have children. They couldn't bear child. So they thought that they were maybe cursed or maybe they had done something wrong. So Joachim had gone into the wilderness to atone for sins that he didn't know what he had done, and Anna was just waiting patiently for him to come back out of his exile of sorts. So anyway, an angel comes and says, "Guess what? Time's up. You're expecting a child. Go find your wife." So the two of them are going to meet under the gate, the Golden Gate in Jerusalem, and they're going to exchange an embrace. Oh my God, what an embrace. So this embrace in the hands of an artist like Giotto turns into a kiss. And what you're seeing right now, this kiss is not, of course, in Constantinople, but in Padua. But this subject is what brought the first kiss in art history since classical times. First kiss. And we're going to have plenty of other kisses after that. But this is the subject. They come pretty close at kissing each other. It's pretty good, when they embrace upon hearing the news that they will have a child, and that child is Mary, Virgin Mary. So anyway, it's a lovely, lovely little story. And then, they love their little baby. So we're going to look at all of the mosaics all around. It's like the narrative pictures that tells the life of Virgin Mary. It's kind of fun. Some of the stories are not at all actually kind of canonical, but it's okay. There was anyway some scriptures that they found that have not been approved by officially by the church, but it's on the walls and it's officially enough for us. So all of these stories, some of them are very famous. A presentation of Mary in the temple has been painted by many great artists. So some of them are more obscure, like Mosaic of the Journey to Bethlehem, where they're gonna have a census, And here, I mean, it's very rare that you actually see that Joseph, Mary's husband, actually had children from a previous marriage. Well, you don't see that in Western art that much. Well, in Eastern art, they are seeing that. Here's one of his sons. He had actually three sons, apparently. The painting shows more sons. So you find things like this that can be confusing because who are those guys who are traveling with Mary? Well, those are the sons of Joseph from a previous marriage. Remember how Joseph was very old. So you've got beautiful mosaic. Here's another Chris Pantocrator. So this is another subject that keeps coming up when you've got Jesus blessing us and then holding the book of scriptures. And then here is the outer narthex, that I mapped, and all of these X's that you see in front of the ceiling covering have been removed. There is just nothing left. And then the quality of these mosaics are a little bit lesser than the inner narthex. As you know, the inner is more for the officials and for the emperor or for the dignitaries. But anyway, the entry from the outer narthex toward the nave has this also a beautiful portrait of Christ. Now, I would have thought that this would be called Christ Pantocrator, but actually the title is The Land of the Living. So I still have to kind of understand as to why it's called like this, because Chora, this is the name of the church. Chora means in the fields or outside or away. like Saint-Germain-des-Prés, Saint-Martin-in-the-Fields. It's in the fields, it's outside practically of the original walls. And Chora means that, in the fields or outside. But then something has to do with the land of the living. The Greek name drops the word Chora in it, so there is a pun there, and I haven't really figured it out why they named this particular painting the land of the living instead of just Christ Pantocrator, maybe because it wasn't part of the medallion. And then look at that. Of course, the main room, the nave, has been completely stripped of its decorations. There must have been some amazing decoration. Maybe the most important ones may have been here, imagine, but they all been taken because this was converted into a church. And I don't think that the Muslim in this case preserved all that. They didn't cover them in plaster this time. They basically removed them. We are missing all of that. We don't have the transfiguration. We don't have the raising of Lazarus. We don't even have the crucifixion in this church. Imagine. I mean, this is such a obvious subject. Okay, so yeah, all of these things are destroyed and are gone, but it doesn't matter. There are two of them somehow are left on either side on those pilasters. There is the Jesus on one side, and then the Virgin Mary, and those are very beautiful versions. So this is how it looks right now when it's transformed or converted into a mosque. And guess what? This is the pilaster where you're supposed to have Christ and then the Virgin Mary. Where are they? Well, they did a very good job covering them in such a way that it looks like it mimics a wall decoration, like a marble decoration. It's actually something, a curtain that has dropped in this. So this is how I think we're going to see it. So I'm very curious to discover all that. But otherwise, when they are lifted, this is what you would see. So all of this golden portion in the background has been just scrapped off, maybe to recover the gold as well. But here is how it looks, really, really beautiful. Now, another super surprise as you go west, like as you were exiting, on top of you, there is an amazing mosaic picture there that somehow completely was missed because that one was covered with plaster. It was discovered, I don't know when, maybe kind of recently, and actually it shows a subject called Dormition, which basically is the death of the Virgin. They don't want to say that she died. She's just asleep peacefully. And then Christ just called all the apostles to they all flew back in somehow, and they all showed up around her. And then Jesus just took out her soul, represented in a baby. This is what he did. So this mosaic is there. Is it going to be covered? Are we going to see it? Mystery. We'll find out when we go there. Okay, so this is how it looks when it's covered. So I don't know if they remove that, they will lift it up. So, and then the Perecclesion is the mortuary chapel that's on the side, and there are some incredible frescoes here. This is the Anastasis frescoes, where you see Jesus just pulling out of the dead Adam and Eve. Really, really amazing images that almost mimics the mannerism from the 1500s. It's really amazing how they produce this in the early 1300s. So from artistic standpoint, it's really ahead of its time, and the beauty of this black background that sets all of these figures out is incredibly. It must be just. I went there with my father. My father took me there many, many years, so I remember that it was just an incredible place. And look at that. Just so beautiful. Okay, so I'm just gonna stop here about the Galata Tower. I'll talk next week as we are going to invade and conquer Constantinople. But I want to thank you for sticking around and listening to me today.